All right, guys. So today we're looking at vertical angles, supplementary angles, and then we're going to look at what's called alternate interior angles. Okay. And what we're talking about is when we have two parallel lines that are cut by a transversal. Okay. And this will all make sense in a minute. Okay. So we're going to start filling out the notes. All right. So when there are two parallel lines, so that word is parallel. When there are two parallel lines, um, transversed, okay, which means crosses. When there are two parallel lines that is transverse or crossed by another line, that's what a transversal is. It's a line that crosses two parallel lines. Okay, so don't let that word like mess with your head. Okay, 8 angles are created. All right. And this line that crosses the parallel lines is called a transversal. Okay. That's what it is. It's just a line that crosses two parallel lines. Now, when we do that, there are 4 sets of vertical angles. And we've already talked about vertical angles in class, okay, the last couple of days. There are 2 sets of alternate interior angles. There are 2 sets of alternate exterior angles, 4 sets of corresponding angles, and then there are 12 sets of supplementary angles. Okay, so we've already talked about vertical angles and we've already talked about supplementary angles. Okay, and today we're going to add alternate interior angles. Okay, and I'm going to explain what all that means. All right. So let me scroll down a little bit and we're going to define all of them and list all angles for each category. All right. But tonight we're just going to we're going to start supplementary angle list. We know how to define the vertical angles and then we're going to talk about alternate interior angles. Okay. So, as it says here, we've already identified what vertical and supplementary, can't spell, mentary angles are. All right. And we're going to identify them in this drawing here. Okay. So we know that vertical angles are across from each other at a vertex. And I've already told you that a vertex is where 2 lines cross, or it could be more than two or more lines cross or interconnect, or however you want to say it. Okay. Now they're not drawn, but I could put 2 dots here to remind myself there are 2 vertices here. All right. This line crosses the 2 parallel lines, which is usually shown by double arrows on one end or the other. Okay. Or they'll call this, typically they call this line L and this line M, and they'll say L is parallel to M. That's how it's written. These 2 lines in the middle, they're telling you that L is parallel to M. Either that or they'll have 2 arrows on one side. Okay. That lets you know these lines are parallel. If the lines are not parallel, you cannot use these relationships, okay, that we're going to be talking about. All right, so vertical angles are across from each other at a vertex. So I can say, if I'm going to make a list, which we'll do at the end, and I'm going to abbreviate vertical angles, okay, well, I can clearly see that 1 and 4 are across from each other at this vertex. So I'm going to write 1 and 4. Okay, this little symbol in the middle is called and. It's an and sign, okay? And I'm going to be using different colors to say clear. And I can see that 2 and 3 are across from each other at this vertex. So they are also vertical angles. I told you there were 4 sets. Then I can see that 5 and 8 are vertical angles because they're across from each other at this lower vertex. And then I can see that 7 and 6 are vertical angles. Now, they typically number them 1 through 8 like this, but they're not always. What you need to know is that the angles are cross from each other, the vertex. They could have different numbers than this. It's in this drawing, this applies. Okay. All right. Now we can all go ahead and identify 8 pairs of supplementary angles. And I'm going to do that over here. So I'm going to put supplementary angles. All right. So we can see, now remember, supplementary angles are 2 angles whose sum is 90 degrees. And typically we're looking at these straight lines, 2 angles that are beside each other on a straight line. So when I draw this line right here, I see that 1 and 2 are supplementary angles. And you know what? I think I'm going to have you do this. The measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. Okay. And another set is below this brown line is 3 and 4. So the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees. All right. Now we're going to skip down to the second parallel line. And again, here's a straight line. And I can see 5 and 6 are beside each other. And their sums equal 180, or their sum equals 180 degrees. And then the 2 angles below that are also beside each other, and they also measure 180 degrees. And I told you there's 8 here so far that we know. And you said, well, where are the other 4? Well, let's use red. Okay. There's another line, straight line right here. And when I look at it, I kind of got to tilt my head a little bit, but I can see that 3 and 1 are supplementary angles. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180 degrees. And then below that red line is 2 and 4. So the measure of angle 2, they're beside each other. Their sum is going to equal 180 degrees. All right. And let's use, I don't know if gray will show up too well. This is kind of a burgundy color. I don't know if we'll be able to see the difference. Let's see if we can see the difference in the brown. Not really. A little bit. It's a little bit different color. But if I draw another line right here at this vertex, I see 5 and 7 are beside each other. So that means the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 7 is equal to 180 degrees. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just looking at the straight lines. What angles are beside each other? And then I also see that 6 and 8 are beside each other. So the measure of angle 6 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180 degrees. Okay. So we now have identified, this is all there is to vertical angles. Okay. There's nothing more that we're going to add to that list. This is 8 of the 12. There are 4 more sets, which we'll get into as we go along in this unit. Okay. We're going to define 2 more sets in this video, and then we'll have 2 sets left. Okay. All right. So clear that out. You can always pause it or rewind it if you didn't get all that. Okay. I've got to scroll down a little bit. Now, and As I just said, we've only listed 8 of the 12 sets of supplementary angles. And we'll list the other 4 as we move along in this unit. Now we're going to look at the alternate interior angle theorem. And this theorem states that alternate interior angles of the parallel lines are congruent. And we know by now that congruent is the word that means equal. Okay, their measures are equal. Okay, now what do we mean by alternate interior? So let's break down those 2 words and see what it means. So first of all, interior means that the angles are in between or inside the parallel lines. That's why they are called interior angles. So we've already talked about, like, if you go to paint your house, right? A room in your house, you go to the store, you buy interior paint, okay? Because you're painting the inside of your house. And likewise, if you're painting the outside of your house, you should buy exterior paint because it's a little bit more, it's better. It stands up to weather and everything else a lot better. Okay. So interior is inside or in between the parallel lines. Okay. That's why they're called interior. And now we're going to look at this in practice. Okay. So looking at this drawing, it's the same drawing we had before. All right. Nothing's changed. Uh, we're going to look, and I call it, and I'm just going to do alternate interior angles. Okay. So we're looking at the angles that are in between the 2 parallel lines. And if you have to, you can draw a little box like I just did, box it off. Okay. And so when you do that, you say, oh, okay, I'm looking at these 4 angles right here. Okay. Now, alternate means, in this case, alternate means on the opposite side. And the way I teach this is look at angle number 3. Let's just look at that. It's an interior angle. Okay. So if I decide to call these angles by their placement inside, this is number 3 is on the upper left. Okay. So if I'm going to the opposite interior angle, well, 5 is not opposite. It's on the same side. Okay. It's on the same side as 3. So it's not in the opposite position. So if I say upper left, let me write that out. So this is on the upper left side. Okay. So I want to see the one that's on the bottom right side. That is the alternate interior angle. So angle 3 and angle 6 are congruent. So the way we write that is the measure of angle 3 is congruent to the measure of angle 6. We've been writing and saying the word congruent, but this is the symbol. It's an equal sign with a little squiggly line on top. Okay. That means you can see 3 is an acute angle. So if 3 was 57 degrees, 6 is going to be 57 degrees. They are congruent. And by the same token, now look at number 4. Let's use a different color. Let's go back to red. Okay. This is on the upper right. Well, we already know it's not congruent to this one because that's congruent to number 3. So the only other option is number 5, which is on the bottom left. Okay. That is in the alternate or opposite interior position. So that means the measure of angle 5 is congruent to the measure of angle 4. Okay. That's what I mean by alternate interior angles. Okay. And that's the only new one we're going to introduce tonight. Now, there is something called same side interior angles. Okay. Same side interior angles. So again, interior meaning inside, same side meaning on the same side of the transversal. Okay. So if because so now we're looking at a different relationship, we're still looking at the ones on the inside. They are, and oh wait, let me do that. They that you have to follow along your notes because it cut off here, but these angles are supplementary angles. And I think the next blank is for angles, but we'll scroll down in a minute, okay? Which means, so right here, so I'm not going to rewrite all the ones we've written before, like 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, and then 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, okay? But I'm going to add to that list, and we're going to write the complete list at the end, okay? Angle 5, what's on the same side on the inside of the parallel lines? What's on the same side of the transversal, but on the inside of the parallel lines is angle 5 and angle 3. So that means the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 3 is equal to 180 degrees. All right. And the same thing with 6 and 4. Okay. They are on the same side of the transversal on the inside of the parallel lines. So the measure of angle 6 plus the measure of angle 4 equals 180 degrees. So we already had 8 supplementary angle sets listed. We're going to add these 2 to the list. Okay. So now we have 10 sets of supplementary angles. And the other 2 will come later. Okay. And we're going to make a complete list of what we've learned today here in just a minute. Okay. So don't get alternate interior and same side interior confused. Okay. Same side angles on the inside are supplementary. Okay. So we stopped here. It says same. So the words here, let's go ahead and fill this in. Remember, we said same side interior angles are supplementary angles. And so now we have 2 more sets of supplementary angles to add to our list, which we just did. So now the last thing we're going to do today is write a complete list of all the angles that we know. We know all the vertical angles and we know 10 sets of supplementary angles. Okay, and that's what we're going to list. And we also know 2 sets of alternate interior angles. All right, so let's list all this stuff. So here we go. So here's the chart. Okay, and I may run out of room, but hopefully you won't. You can draw, if you would, with your pen or pencil, whatever you're taking notes with. Uh, I meant to do this before I make copies and I forgot. Put some lines here so we can make our columns, okay? So let's start with on this side because these are easier, right? Alternate interior angles. So we're looking at the inside and angles are on the opposite sides of the opposite positions of the inside. So that means 3 and 6, and this is where I just write 3 and 6, and then 5 and 4. So all right, 5 and 4. That's it. Okay. 1 and 2 are on the outside of the parallel lines. 7 and 8 are on the outside of the parallel lines. And yes, there is a relationship there, which we're going to explore tomorrow, but not tonight. Okay. Now, vertical angles we've already identified. Let's do this. So 1 and 4 and 5 and 8, and then 2 and 3, and 6 and 7. And this list is complete. There's only 4 sets. That's it. Okay. And hopefully you see something taking shape here. Okay. 2 is congruent to 3 because they are vertical angles. 3 is congruent to 6 because they are alternate interior angles. And 6 is congruent to 7 because they are vertical angles. All right. And the same thing goes in the other direction. 1 is congruent to 4 because they're vertical angles. 4 is congruent to 5 because they are alternate interior angles. And then 5 is congruent to 8 because they are vertical angles. All right. Now let us list all the sets of, and I'm going to do this quickly because we're a little bit over 20 minutes. Okay. Let's list all the sets. I didn't want to do all that. Let's do this. There we go. I'll just erase this part. Let's list all the sets of supplementary, and I'm just going to draw some arcs so we can see it. All right. So let's go back to brown. So 1 and 2. I don't know if I have enough colors, but we're going to try to use different colors. 3 and 4. Hope you can see the green. 5 and 6. Let's use this dark blue. 7 and 8. Not done. But now I got to look at going the other way. That's why I decided to use different colors. Let's use this brown. So now I have 5 and 7. I'm going to start listing over here. You can continue to list down if you wish. All right. And then I have, let's use this darker gray. 6 and 8. And let's use this lavender. 3 and 1, or 1 and 3. Either way, doesn't matter. And then last color, uh, let's use orange. Hopefully we can see it. And then 2 and 4. All right. And now, remember I said in class that supplementary angles are not always adjacent to each other. They're not always beside each other. Okay. And this shows that very clearly. Okay. And I'm going to try to use this color here. I don't know if it's going to be much different than the blue, but we'll see. But I told you that same side interior angles. That means 5 and 3, and I'm running out of room, are supplementary. So let's do this. Okay. This is one big box here. 5 and 3 are supplementary, and 6 and 4 are supplementary because they are on the same side of the transversal on the inside or interior between the two parallel lines. Okay. And that's what we know so far. Okay. So when we get to class tomorrow, we'll have an assignment looking at these relationships, using these relationships to solve problems. All right.